It's a good question, and because we've asked that same question, and one of the teams that we have established of many teams is to go back and review the inspection work, the modification work, and any tile work that was performed at the Palmdale facility in California. And so that's an action for us to go complete. That's just one of many teams. We're looking at our commit to flight process. We're looking at our inspections. We're looking at flight control systems. We're looking at our aero and thermal environments, many others. And so that's just one of several that we are looking at, and hopefully as we work ourselves through this investigation, we'll be able to, in some cases, rule out certain areas because we'll have enough information that clearly points to the fact that it is not a problem, it does not represent a contributing factor. And there might be other subsystems that are in the gray area that we don't have enough information to rule them out. And then there are clearly others, like I mentioned to Mark, on the external tank and the tile systems that are more in the higher area of focus than some others. So at this stage, with only 48 hours behind us, it's all open. We haven't ruled out anything, but eventually we're going to be able to rule some subsystems out as a root cause.
This is Chris Kreidler from Florida Today. A few years ago, the Southwest Research Institute did a report for NASA on the impact of foam on tiles and what that meant, and NASA told us today that that report was impounded, and I wondered why it was and if we could actually see the results of that.
Well, I think generally we have impounded information that we believe would be helpful to our investigation. I don't know for a fact whether that particular report is impounded or not, and if it is, I don't know the reason why that would be at this point. Certainly that type of information is going to be useful to us. We'll just have to work our way through this period of time. But I should share with you that we have more things impounded today than we really need to have impounded, because we're overreacting at this point to make sure we don't lose any evidence or any piece of information that might be an important contribution for the future. So we are being conservative, we are overreacting, and over time, you're going to see us back away from the current state of affairs. You're going to have to give us a little bit of latitude there and work with us, but we're going to share with you as much as we know. I've got a special team. Their entire objective, 24 hours a day, is data and record handling. And there are many people, even in our engineering teams, that want access to certain pieces of information that is embargoed. And we have a team that allows the release of information. That's their specific assignment and duty. So even in our own teams, we're struggling with getting some access to data, and we're working through it, again, reacting to our over-conservatism. But give us some time. We'll get to the right level. You'll get the information.
Ron, this is Stefano Cledan for the New York Times. I have a question which is a follow-up to Mark Caro's question earlier. The debris I saw in the ice team film clip is not orange. It looks white. So I was wondering how sure can we be that it's actually foam, or is it maybe the other side of the foam with the ice on it?
Well, if you read the mission evaluation report that we're releasing today, it also says that as it impacted the wing, there was a white cloud that formed. I don't know what to do with that yet. I don't know if that's a poor choice of words, and a better choice of words should have been light rather than white, because we're dealing with something that we're trying to visualize from a long-range camera, and it had an impact, and it certainly was light-colored, whether it was white or whether it was very small particles with a sun reflection, I can't tell you today. And I'm not sure that when we wrote the report that we really understood what we were talking about. And I'm not sure that it was white or light-colored. And that's one thing we need to recognize as we go back and reanalyze. We're going to get to the bottom of that particular description. Even when I read the report 10 days ago, whenever that particular event, approximately 10 days ago, even before the end of the mission, I read that particular report with white description and circled it and wrote light. To ask the question, are you sure it was white or just a light and a reflection? So we're digging into that. I'm not sure that means anything today.
Ron, it's Jim Banky with Space.com. Some questions related to debris. First of all, in what you said earlier about modeling debris falling off, are you suggesting that there may be debris, albeit single tiles, west of Texas on the way down? And have you heard anything in the field yet? I know you said you didn't actually look at anything yet about the state of debris. Are there any early reports that even suggest that what debris has fallen is in a condition that could be helpful? And finally, real quick, have you correlated that observers in California with the timeline like you mentioned the other day that you might have by today?
Well, the observation that was forwarded to us from California is important to us because this particular observer described, as he was watching the Columbia pass overhead, he described what he believed was, in his mind, tile falling off the vehicle. Now, whether it was tile or not, I don't know. But we're talking to him and trying to understand from his description what that could have been. I don't know if there's any debris in California or Arizona or New Mexico. I do know that we found tile in Fort Worth. And so the fact that we found a tile in the Fort Worth area, largely upstream of the debris field, may be significant. I don't know yet. Again, because the tile is light, its ability to travel downstream with the rest of the heavy material may have limited it to land into the Fort Worth, Dallas area rather than go all the way down into Lufkin and farther. We're still looking at that. I'm speculating a little bit. If this observation on the West Coast was correct in his interpretation, and if we judge it to be the case, if we truly were shedding some material as early as California, that's going to be significant to us. Again, I don't know that to be a fact. And that's why we have a special team whose sole purpose is to investigate those reports and to interview the observers so that we can understand exactly what they're saying. Now, we get reports from all over the country. So some of the reports are going to not be fruitful to us, and others might be. So we're going through the process of eliminating those that aren't going to pay any dividends, and we're trying to isolate those that we think are more interesting, and still too early for us to tell whether or not there's any findings in there that could be useful to us.
Two more from KSC, please.
Phil Long, Harold. Ron, could you share some more specifics about those meetings immediately following or the day after the launch?
Ron Ditmore answering questions now for almost an hour. We're going to continue to monitor this briefing and get some additional analysis. But let's bring in CNN's Miles O'Brien. He's been covering this story, obviously.
Participant. But let me answer the question based on my experience, having been in that environment for many years. You would generally have a team of individuals, I would say probably less than 30, and that would narrow down to maybe less than 10, depending on the real area of expertise, and then maybe even down to 1 or 2 experts as you start working your way from materials to environment to a bigger picture, and all those things come together. And then adding to that team would be our operational personnel, those that operate the vehicle, our flight crew representatives, our safety and quality representatives. And as you start building the scenario and reviewing the analysis, it continues to grow until the point where you brief it at the mission management team. Independent of the mission management team meetings, we hold additional side meetings